Ladies and gents, welcome again with another video. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing my full story on how I went from having a basketball dream in high school to fast forward now living in Vegas and making between 25 to 50k a month. And this is my full story. If you're new to this channel, my name is Elijah. Essentially, in this channel, I just share to you guys the journey that I have on building a multi-six-figure company, and at the same time helping you guys and providing you guys with resources on how to get started in your own journey on becoming a high-ticket closer. Without further ado, I don't want to waste your time here. I'm gonna try to make this as valuable as possible. So it all started way back at around 2016 to 2017 when I was a junior in high school. Back then, I didn't really have any idea on what I wanted to do. I always had that one question in mind: what's the meaning of life? I tried to wrestle with that thought of like, what should I do? Why are we even here? And all those things. And obviously just a natural 16-year-old thought. But I was just playing basketball and my dad encouraged me to read books. I had zero interest in reading books. The best that I could read is a manga, like comic books and all that stuff. And I started seeing my family struggle with bills every single day, every week, just worrying about payments and just making ends meet, putting food on the table. And I hated how I was unable to go to basketball camps or going to AAU tournaments just because we couldn't afford it. I didn't blame my parents with it, and I knew we were in a spot where I had to stand early in my own 2 feet, and I needed to help my parents out because my dad was a minister. He was a lifelong minister, and my mom couldn't work because she's a full-time house mom. So that's one of the main reasons that made me realize, okay, if it's not coming from my family, then I should take up this responsibility myself, because if I find something that's kind of pissing me off, then I should take that problem and solve it. So my first idea was, you know what, I'll become a professional basketball player. I'll be able to support my family through there. I was probably one of the most hardest working person in my team, but I lacked self-confidence and just the conviction I have now. And that's probably one of the detrimentals and why I wasn't able to succeed that much in basketball. But I took everything as learning curve, and it's not a failure. So I got into that and realized, you know what, I'm actually not probably going to become a professional basketball player. And COVID happened during my junior year, and I was unable to play AAU, and junior year is probably one of my best years as a basketball player, and everything was just not falling into place. But another thing happened. I had to spend more time learning about business. I was already reading a book. The very first book I read was How to Win Friends and Influence People and Rich Dad Poor Dad. I picked up Think and Grow Rich, but I just didn't get into it. I read like a couple of chapters, which was pretty cool. But Rich Dad Poor Dad is the full book that I read before school and after school, and I read it in like 2 weeks because everybody was telling me to read it. And this kind of became the foundation of me getting to the online space and getting started. And that was when I learned that there's assets and liabilities and how to actually build generational wealth. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And again, I had a thought of like, okay, how can I help my family out? I have enough time now to focus on actually getting into business. I didn't want to just sit down and do nothing, because that wouldn't be a very productive time, me just sitting down in lockdown and doing nothing. So I have to take advantage of this now when people are just relaxing and waiting for the COVID or the lockdown to stop. Started reading a bunch of books, and then my realtor ended up needed someone to do their social media. And at that point, I was really interested in photography, videography, and all these things. And that's how I kind of got my break into this. Oh, you can make money besides just working 9-to-5 job and just doing your passion and skill. And that was the time too I was kind of scared to charge for my passion and what I love doing, because I didn't know that you could get paid taking pictures or videography. And that's kind of like the transition of me finding about the entire space. And I was getting paid about $22 or $21 per hour on those things. At that point, again, I didn't know how to construct or structure my payments or anything, so I was just going at it as a whim. So one of the biggest mistake I did was charging per hour. I should have done like monthly and then a specific price, like content that I'm gonna give him. So that's one of the biggest mistake I did, and I ended up getting burnt out. And I was doing a lot of things at the pandemic, so I just took advantage of the time. I was selling masks, and then I made a decent amount of money there. I think I was making a peak like $500 to $700 a week, around there. And then I was 18 years old, and this is my first time seeing money coming through there. And then compared to working part-time and making like $13.50 per hour, that money is a lot to me. I have no idea, and I made stupid decisions on spending those money as well. And eventually I stumbled across mentorships. I invested my very first mentorship after I graduated high school. I'm kind of going back and forth on different timelines here, but after that, I'm just trying to make sure that we speed up the process on like how I got into this entire space. So after I got into graduated high school, I realized I wasn't going to become successful in basketball. I was in a crossroad: either go back to Philippines and try to become a professional basketball there, or capitalize on being in the US and try to make something work out here. And obviously it would be stupid of me to not take advantage of being in the US. Here's the thing: there's so many privileges in US that people take granted for, and I knew I had to take advantage of it. And one of them is having an accessibility on anything, like having easy access to like working a job. These things are not easy to come by in Philippines. So I was like, okay, if I will give up my dream of becoming a basketball player, there is no way in hell that I'm gonna make this business thing not work out. So there was no chance of me failing, because I poured out my heart and soul on this idea of playing professional basketball for 4 years, and then that dream was crushed. Now it's like, okay, I need to think here logically and what will help out my family and put me in the best position if I'm going to do this business thing, right? So eventually I ended up going all in here. I decided to stop playing basketball fully because I said, if I'm gonna commit to something, I want all in. My time, effort, and attention should go into one thing. I'll be honest, I'm not honestly the most talented. I have a lot of mistakes as well. And eventually I started a bunch of stuff. Like I got into getting mentorship. So my first mentor got into drop shipping. I was like, okay, I'll make it work out. I realized that there's so much things that goes into drop shipping. Like you need to build your website, you need to have a winning product, you need to have money to spend on ads organically so you can actually generate sales. I already had experience on building website and stuff like that with my masks that I was selling, but I was the one who was fulfilling it, warehousing it, and then I was fulfilling it. And there was a point where I did a 3PL or third party fulfillment, and I was just spending an absurd amount of money, and I realized like my balance sheet, or just like the profit and loss, I was losing so much more money on storing it in a 3PL, and I was not selling anything of the mask. So I started losing money, so I just took the loss. And again, like there's a lot of things that I made mistakes on starting this journey, so it wasn't the easiest. So I was like, okay, eventually at one point I got into marketing agency. Again, if you guys are seeing a pattern, I tried a bunch of stuff when I was starting out, and at this point I was still doing day trading and options trading. Again, not recommended. At this point I was getting really burnt out. Talked to my high school basketball coach. I was like, coach, doing these things and I just feel like I'm not progressing on any of them. And I know one of the things I learned is don't put your eggs in just one basket. You want to diversify. He gave me an example. This is like water cup right now, and you keep filling up these water cups, and you realize like you have a lot of responsibilities. You see the water cups, they're not fully filled in. Your energy is all over the place. I was like, okay, that makes so much sense. So I started putting the water together, and now you have more energy here, and guess the progress you're gonna make. I was like, okay, that makes so much sense. I'm in the idea of I'm in business, but I am in multiple different businesses. So if I want to actually progress, I have to drop one thing. And I realized with the drop shipping, okay, cool, I love the drop shipping idea, but I don't have money right now, so let me just go all in the marketing agency. And at that point I was reading books, I was listening to podcasts when I was working my 9-to-5 job in a warehouse job. One of the biggest things I learned is instead of trying to do everything yourself, ask yourself, who can help me solve this problem, and who can I ask for help to speed up this process? So I already had an edge of having that frame of mind of I don't need to do everything myself. So again, I was looking for mentors to help me with my marketing agency, and at that point I ended up joining this other mentorship that was $5,000. So at this point I was $10,000 in a span of 3 to 4 months. I had just that delusional belief in myself, I'll make this work out. Again, I'm like an all in or nothing type of person, and it could be good, it could be bad, but that's one of the biggest edge that I would say that I had is my risk tolerance was insanely high compared to an average person. And I'll be honest, like growing up, I had a bunch of stuff that allowed me to be more risk tolerant compared to an average person. So eventually 3 months in, 10K down the pipe, I was like, okay, I'll make that back. It's pretty simple. Just send a couple clients, I'll be fine. Eventually I was in a crossroad where my parents moved out, my dad is now assigned to a different place where me and my brother decided to stay in Everett, Washington. That's where I used to live. Now I'm in Vegas. Eventually, me and my brother, we had to start splitting rent and I had to share. At that point, I was not making a dime on my business ventures. My parents were telling me, are going back to college. My aunties and my uncles back in Philippines are telling me, when are you going back to college? Like, what you're doing is not right or whatever. My friends are asking me, how's that business going? Are you making money? It's painful to see them making so much more money. They're making like $25 per hour in a work that I was like, oh, I should just get there. But I had a vision, and again, I was delusional enough. I know for a fact this, I'm gonna make this work out. So I took the pay cut of not working a $25 per hour job where I had an option to do it. So I just told myself, I'd rather sacrifice the fast money now and put my all in here so I can have the long money. So, and again, I think if once you start progressing, you start realizing that. Eventually, I signed my very first client. I had to go back to 9-to-5 job because when my parents moved, I already quit my job. I had a couple money saved up and I realized, okay, I went all in again. I still have my credit card debt. So I was paying minimum payments on that because I was like, I'm just gonna sign a client, I'll be fine. Because again, I was over leveraging myself on the drop shipping, paying suppliers, paying ads, and just not working out. And then ended up investing another 5K, which I don't have the capital on. So I just put in my credit cards. Again, I have a high risk tolerance. And now at this point, I was probably like 12 to 13K in debt in my credit card. And I was just stressing every single day. Like, where the hell am I gonna get that money? How am I gonna pay my bills? And I was just stressing out. And then one day I go to church and there was a lesson about God knows that you need clothing, food, housing to survive. But the people who only worries about those things are the worldly people who don't believe in God. Like, how little faith of you to not to worry about those things if you truly believe in God. And that just had a shift in myself. I'm like, if I'm doing this for God actually, then why am I worrying about all these worldly things? Again, no signing clients, nothing, right? These are like a very split timeline. I felt like I've lived like 10 different lifetime in just a very short amount of time. Like last year, this all happened last year. And then there's another breaking point where I met some guys in my community at the mentorship program that I took. They were all making 10, 15K a month. And I was like, holy shit, like these guys are making a lot of money. And then at that point, my money belief was very messed up. I fully commit again. I was like kind of pushed in my regular job that I should quit. When I went back, I was hybrid. So I was working with them as a website developer, or it's just a glorified me putting numbers on the Google Sheets and just scanning some bunch of baby clothes. I was working with an e-commerce company. So at that point, I just went all in and quit again. I was like, you know what? You guys are trying to make me go back in the warehouse job again. I promised myself I'm not going to regress now at this point. I have to go all in. And then that last one happened. And then me meeting my guys from the partnership program that I took. And I had 1 month to make it work out. I think I had like $1,000 or something like that on my bank account. And I had another paycheck coming in. I think it was like $800 to survive. So I have 1 month of rent, but remember I had to pay like credit card payments and interest, and that was pain in the ass. And I was barely eating the right food I needed. I was just surviving off of like tea in the morning and some boiled eggs and just try to minimize my thing, right? And shout out to my brother. Sometimes he would buy croissants or something that I can eat, like muffins from Costco to eat. So at that point, I was just hammering down my marketing agency, started creating a bunch of content. I was doubling down on outreach. I was sending like 100 to 200 messages a day. And then I was literally doing personalized messages. I was joining a bunch of Facebook groups. At that point, I didn't know the marketing strategies that I know now, but if now I started my own marketing agency, I would have approached it completely different. At that point, God's grace, I signed a client. I was like holy shit, I made 2K in a 30-minute call. I was teared up.
I got you. We'll make it. We're gonna surprise you.
After that, I hired a media buyer. Media buyer didn't know jack shit on running TikTok ads because that was kind of like what I'm selling. But she told me she knew how to run ads, and then paid her already like her cut of $500 on that. And then I bought another course. So again, to provide value to the person I just signed, we were in a 2K a month retainer. So I started doing some marketing strategy for him, optimizing his website and all that stuff to get him to start getting some sales for his website. At that point, I realized, okay, I thought I just signed media buyer, and then I'll be fine. And again, I was writing up 2K a month, but it really leaves 1,500 minus rent, minus card payments I was doing. At this point, I consolidated my debt already and then put it in just one big payment. So I just pulled out like 10K loan and just paid off like all of my credit cards, and now I was paying all of my payment. And then after that, I was in a crossroad again. My client was very upset, like, yo, we're not getting any sales, like what is happening? But there were so many things that we needed to fix in his website and a lot of optimization, but he just wasn't seeing the vision. At my end too, I was just like, okay, I don't know what to do here. And he just let me go. And at that point, I was like, shit, I already quit my job. I don't know what to do here. And my homie was like, yo, how you heard about high ticket closing or remote sales? Like, no, what is that? It's like, you know, you could just do what you're doing, like closing deals for other people. I was like, okay. At that point, I was just so desperate to make money, to make ends meet. So I started. The very first day he told me about it, we went to our same spot that we would always go to talk about life and just like business. And he told me, yeah, just look at the same thing how we acquire clients. Just look through Facebook groups and all that stuff. So I started doing that. The very first week, I landed a couple interviews, and then I had two very solid interviews. One told me, hey, I can get you to 10, 15K months on this offer, but I need you to be closing deals Monday through Sunday. I'm like, I wanted to take it, but I already landed a closing position from an Amazon offer, and she just started booking calls in my calendar. And I'm like, hey, I already doing this. Can I still do this? And the guy just said, nah. But at that point, I had a couple interviews lined up. I just leveraged my experience in my marketing agency closing that 2K deal. Again, the conviction that I had while talking to them as well played a big part. So at that point, started closing deals. I was like, shit, I need to make this work out, because if this doesn't work out, then I'm fucked. So very first week, I closed 2.5K deal. And I was like, okay, I just made 10% commission, $250. Just, I don't need to worry about fulfillment. It's like, okay, this is kind of legit. So I kept doing it. And then like about 5 to 6 weeks in, I made like 5 to 7K in commission. I was like, okay, this is real. And second month came in, I was taking like at this point 8 to 9 sales calls. And then this one of my good friends, Zumero, we started literally hammering objection handling, like doing mock calls, creating scenarios, like literally every single day in between calls, after calls, before calls, every morning. We scheduled a call every single day to meet each other to get better as individuals, as a closer. So he was in a really good offer as well, and I was in an offer where it was just starting off. I don't know how I made it work out, but I made it work out, because typically if an offer is not making any money, that's a bad sign that you probably won't make any money. But you know what? I had to be resourceful. At that point, it just clicked. The coach that I was closing for, she wasn't making any money yet, but she was running ads, she was running shout outs, and I was like, okay, cool. That's a good sign that we probably will get some leads. And at that point too, I also knew marketing, so that helped a lot. So I was giving her suggestions on what we could do at the front end. So second month came in, about like 7 weeks in, I made about 8 to 9K my second month. Again, just never look back, and then just kept doing that. And then a few months later, that's when I started sharing my story about how to get closing and how I got into it. And then eventually I started my own sales training company, how you can get into it, on how to land offers and all those things. And then me closing and then also building my sales training company, my peak was 50K in revenue, and that was probably one of the best peak I was had. It's been a journey, a lot of failures, ups and downs, and again, there's always new mountains to climb, but this essentially in a nutshell on how I got to the situation I'm in right now, and I couldn't be more grateful. And there's one thing that I want you guys to take out from this video is I'm no different than you, whoever is in the other side of the screen. I guarantee you, if you just stick to this on whatever you're pursuing right now, it's going to work out if you just remain consistent. And I know it's so hard to see it right now, but I guarantee you, stick around for a long enough time and it's bound to work out. I promise you that. I'm no different. I'm not special. I could barely speak English when I moved here in America. I'm the least person you could expect be in sales. I'm not really good at talking to people and all these things, but I'm here. Trust the process. Don't ever quit. Just remain consistent, and I guarantee you and I promise you, you'll make it as well. Hope this was something valuable for you and you guys found something valuable here. Leave a comment on where your journey is at right now. And if you have any questions, you know where to reach me. You have my Instagram. And if you're interested to get into high ticket sales, I'd love to help you out. And I'd love to be part of your journey as well. But again, I'll leave you guys with this same saying as always: be a creator, not a consumer. Create something today that will inspire you and others. Peace out.